There is a battle that no one talks about, a hidden war that rages quietly behind the curtain of your daily routine. It is not between nations, not between ideologies, and not between people. It is the silent, invisible war between your mind and your soul. This war does not make headlines. It doesn't erupt in violence or chaos, at least not outwardly, but inside it tears at your sense of self. And the tragedy is that most people live and die without ever realizing that they were caught in this conflict. Your mind is a master of survival. It is shaped by society, trained by school, and reinforced by culture. It loves logic, patterns, control, and validation. It calculates, predicts, and protects. It is your mental armor. But the soul whispers when the mind shouts. It doesn't demand, it longs. It doesn't command, it calls. The soul is the part of you that remembers who you are when the world tries to make you forget. This conflict begins early. As children, we move with the soul. We create, imagine, wonder, but slowly the mind begins to dominate. Be realistic. They say, fit in, follow the rules, think critically. And so the soul retreats, not in defeat, but in patience, waiting for the moment you're willing to return home. And then comes the ache, the emptiness, the restlessness. You achieve, and it doesn't satisfy. You chase goals, but they feel hollow. This is not depression of the brain. This is the hunger of the soul. So what is the way forward? You must not kill the mind, but you must train it to serve, not rule, the soul. Use its clarity, but not its cynicism. Let it organize your life, but not define your worth. The mind is the architect. The soul is the vision. One without the other is imbalance. Together, they birth wisdom. This is not a message of religion, but of deep human truth. The soul does not care for dogma. It seeks authenticity, and the mind, when liberated from ego, can be the soul's finest ally. To end this war, you must practice listening to silence. Reflect, create, pray, meditate, sit with your pain, ask yourself, not what should I do, but who am I becoming? Because in the end, it is not success that saves you. It is alignment. The human being is a battleground of two forces, the rational mind and the intuitive soul. Human beings are not singular in essence. We are dual in our interior nature. We exist as both thinking creatures and feeling souls. The mind, often praised by society, is the tool of logic, reason, and memory. It is the seat of calculation, planning, and self-preservation. The soul, in contrast, is not concerned with strategy or gain. It is the source of our longing, conscience, dreams, creativity, and deep sense of purpose. From a philosophical perspective, this duality mirrors the ancient split seen in thinkers from Plato to Jung. Plato described the soul as seeking truth beyond the physical world, while the body and by extension, the mind was often distracted by the material. Carl Jung went further to explain that our psyche is not a unified whole, but a complex interaction between conscious mind and the unconscious soul, shadow, and archetypes. This duality is not pathological. It is the condition of being human. The mind wants to control. The soul seeks to flow. The mind deals with time, past and future. The soul lives in the present. The mind questions, what is the safest way forward? The soul whispers, what is the truest? This is where the hidden war begins. One seeks security, the other meaning. In our modern world, the mind is overfed, and the soul is starved. We are taught to think, but not to feel, to solve, but not to wonder, to succeed, but not to be still. This imbalance is what gives rise to existential crisis. A person may be highly educated, yet deeply confused, technologically advanced, yet spiritually lost. Education today often sharpens the intellect but neglects the inner world. A truly wise person is not one who has merely trained their mind, but one who has integrated it with the depths of the soul. The goal is not to suppress the mind or worship the soul, but to harmonize them. In essence, your life is a dialogue between these two forces. If your mind dominates, you become overly analytical, anxious, and emotionally numb. If your soul dominates without guidance, you become ungrounded, lost in fantasy. But if they work together, if your mind listens to your soul and the soul accepts the structure of the mind, you become whole. That wholeness is the real meaning of inner peace. This keynote reminds us that the inner conflict is not a curse, it's a calling to Consciously bridge the gap between your thinking and your being, between the one who survives and the one who truly lives. The mind often wears masks to cope with society, driven by ego, fear, and survival. In contrast, the soul is a mirror that reflects who we truly are beyond performance. From the moment we are born, we begin adapting to the world around us. The child learns quickly what behavior brings approval and what brings rejection. The mind, being the adaptive instrument it is, starts building masks, identities that protect us, win us praise, or keep us safe. These masks become our personalities, our roles, and our public images. Philosophers like Soren Kierkegaard and Friedrich Nietzsche warned of the danger of living inauthentically, of becoming so consumed by the image we project that we forget the self behind it. Carl Jung went further, naming this outer identity the persona, the mask we present to the world. But behind the persona lies something deeper, untouched by performance, the soul. The soul is not interested in impressing, it is interested in expressing. The soul holds your deepest values, your truest desires, your unexplained intuitions. It is not what you show others, but what remains when you are finally alone. It is not what your resume says, but what your silence reveals. The mind is conditioned to wear masks because it seeks acceptance. It is fueled by fear of rejection, failure, and being seen as inadequate. So it constructs identities: the achiever, the people pleaser, the rebel, the victim. These roles are useful, sometimes even necessary in certain environments, but problems arise when we confuse the mask with the self. The mask hides while the mirror reveals. The soul, being a mirror, shows us who we really are, not who we pretend to be. But most people avoid looking into that mirror because it reflects their insecurities, unhealed wounds, and untapped potential. Yet without facing that reflection, we can never live authentically. In education and society at large, we often reward the mask. We celebrate achievement without questioning its cost. We train young minds to succeed, but not to understand themselves. We create performers, not philosophers, producers, not seekers. True wisdom comes when the mind stops hiding behind its mask and dares to look into the mirror of the soul. This moment of honesty, of inner confrontation, is what many traditions call the beginning of awakening. When the mind realizes that the performance is exhausting, it starts asking deeper questions. Who am I beyond my roles? What do I actually believe? What does my soul want that my mind has silenced? And it is in this questioning that the hidden war becomes visible. The ego resists, the soul insists. You cannot destroy the mind, nor should you, but you must stop letting the mask become a prison. The soul doesn't need you to be perfect, it only needs you to be real. And so, the task is not to remove the mask by force, but to outgrow it through truth. The more you live in alignment with your inner self, the less you will need the approval of others to justify your existence. In the end, the mind must stop performing, and the soul must start speaking. Only then does the war begin to transform into a dialogue, and eventually into harmony. When the soul is silenced by the loudness of the mind, life becomes hollow. Depression, spiritual fatigue, and restlessness are symptoms of the soul being neglected. Modern life praises the mind, its speed, efficiency, and ability to produce. We are taught to value mental sharpness over emotional depth, logic over intuition, calculation over contemplation. Yet, behind all this mental noise, a quieter reality is trying to reach us, the voice of the soul, and when that voice is ignored, there are consequences. The soul doesn't die from neglect, but it dims, and that dimness becomes the silent suffering of modern humanity. You may have seen it, perhaps even lived it. The person who has it all but feels empty, the achiever who feels no peace, the high performer battling silent despair. These are not failures of the mind, they are cries from the soul. Philosophers like Pascal and Heidegger spoke of this inner void, the sense that even with all our accomplishments, we remain fundamentally unsettled. Why? Because no amount of external success can compensate for internal disconnection. The mind can fill your schedule, only the soul can fill your heart. When you ignore your soul, you slowly lose the capacity to feel wonder. Beauty no longer stirs you, love feels unsafe, silence becomes threatening. Instead of living, you begin to function, efficiently perhaps, but mechanically. This is the root of spiritual fatigue, not that your body is tired, but that your being is malnourished. You fed your mind with knowledge, but not your soul. With meaning, the mind knows how, but the soul asks why, and when that why goes unanswered for too long, the inner world collapses into a kind of quiet grief. You may experience restlessness even in comfort, emptiness in the midst of company, a growing sense that something is missing, even when everything seems fine. Psychology might call it depression, religion might call it spiritual disconnection, philosophy calls it existential crisis, but at its core it is this: the soul is speaking and the mind refuses to listen. This is not to condemn the mind, but to expose its limits. Mind can guide a ship, but it cannot choose the destination. The soul is the compass. Without it, even the most skillful navigation is aimless. This keynote calls us to reclaim the sacred art of listening inwardly. We must make space through solitude, reflection, stillness, for the soul to speak. Journaling, walking in nature, art, silence, music, deep conversation, these are not luxuries, they are how the soul breathes, and in education, this must be remembered. We teach students to think, but do we teach them to feel truth? We show them how to argue, but do we show them how to be? In a world obsessed with productivity, listening to the soul is a radical act, but it is the only act that can lead us out of numbness and into meaning, because the soul does not punish you when ignored. It simply waits, and the longer it waits, the more you will feel lost, until one day you realize you have mastered everything, except yourself. This war is not meant to destroy either side, but to awaken a union. Wisdom is born when mind and soul begin to collaborate. At the heart of the human experience lies a profound tension, not a war to win, but a conflict to understand. Too often, we frame the mind and soul as enemies. We are told to escape the mind, or transcend the body, as if enlightenment demands a kind of inner civil war, but that is a false dichotomy. This war is not about choosing sides, it is about integration. The mind is not the villain, it is a magnificent tool, capable of insight, invention, and structure. The soul, likewise, is not irrational. It is the seat of depth, ethics, and inner knowing. The conflict between them only becomes destructive when we forget their purposes and fail to align them. The ancient Greeks spoke of this balance through the concept of sophrosyne, a kind of harmonious self-restraint and inner order. Eastern traditions, too, speak of yin and yang, the balance between action and stillness, form and spirit. In Jungian thought, individuation, the journey to psychological wholeness, is precisely about unifying all parts of the self, conscious and unconscious, ego and shadow, mind and soul. When the mind and soul are in conflict, you feel torn, constantly pulled between reason and longing, logic and intuition, duty and desire. You may find yourself endlessly overthinking decisions your heart already answered. You may feel spiritually aware, yet practically stuck. This inner division fragments your sense of identity. But when mind and soul begin to collaborate, a new power is born, inner coherence. Think of it like music. The mind writes the melody, but the soul gives it emotion. The mind sets the destination, but the soul ensures it is worth reaching. The mind keeps you grounded, and the soul keeps you alive. Integration is not easy. It requires self-inquiry, knowing when you're thinking out of fear versus feeling from truth. Inner dialogue, asking your soul what it desires and letting the mind plan a path toward it. Reflection, pausing long enough to notice when the mind has hijacked your path. Courage, letting go of socially accepted goals that do not match your soul's voice. Philosophically, this is the essence of wisdom, not simply knowing many things, but knowing how to live in alignment with your whole self. And so this inner war is not a curse, but a call to mature, to stop living in pieces, stop being at war with yourself, to become integrated, whole. In practical terms, integration means using your intellect to serve your deeper values, letting your intuition inform your decisions without ignoring facts, living in such a way that your life outwardly reflects your truth inwardly. This is not perfection, it is harmony, and harmony, unlike silence, is not the absence of conflict but the presence of coherence. When the mind becomes the servant of the soul, not its master, you begin to walk a path not just of achievement but of purpose. In this sense, the inner war is a spiritual initiation, a sacred tension. It pushes you to awaken, it asks you to grow, and in answering its call, you don't eliminate one part of yourself, you unite them and become whole. True education is not only about sharpening the intellect, but also about awakening the soul. Philosophy, art, spirituality, and silence must return to the center of human development. The modern world often measures intelligence by mental speed, memory, and measurable success, but this is only half the story, perhaps even less, for while we have created systems to train the mind, we have largely abandoned the soul. What good is a brilliant mind in a blind life? Education today focuses on performance, output, and competition. Children are taught how to pass exams, not how to understand themselves. Young adults graduate knowing how to solve equations or analyze text, but they remain strangers to their own desires, fears, values, and spiritual longings. This is not education, it is programming. True education must return to its philosophical roots, educare, meaning to draw out. The goal is not to cram information into a student, but to draw wisdom out of them. That wisdom is not found in facts alone, but in reflection, experience, and connection to the inner world. This is where the war between mind and soul begins, in childhood. The soul is naturally present in a child's curiosity, play, dreams, and sense of wonder. But slowly, those qualities are replaced with discipline, conformity, and performance metrics. As philosopher Alan Watts said, we are educated into stupidity, meaning we learn how to function but not how to live. To educate the soul, we must reintroduce 4 sacred practices into our culture and classrooms. 1. Philosophy not academic jargon, but deep personal questioning. Children should be taught to ask, who am I? What is truth? What does it mean to live well? Philosophy trains the soul to seek. 2. Art and creativity. Art is the language of the soul. Music, poetry, painting, and storytelling awaken emotional intelligence and help individuals express what the rational mind cannot articulate. 3. Spiritual literacy. This is not about religion, but about developing a connection to something greater, whether through mindfulness, contemplation, or ethical reflection. Spiritual practices teach inner peace and humility. 4. Silence and solitude. In a world addicted to noise, we must relearn the power of stillness. Silence gives the soul space to breathe. Solitude becomes the classroom of the self. To neglect the soul is to raise a generation of highly skilled but deeply lost individuals. They will know how to succeed but not how to love. They will know how to compete but not how to care. They will know how to build but not how to be whole. As educators, philosophers, and parents, we must ask, are we producing thinkers or awakeners? Are we nurturing machines or human beings? The hidden war between the mind and soul can only be resolved when we shift the foundation of education, from molding people to fit the world to helping them shape the world through who they truly are. The world doesn't need more information, it needs more wisdom, and wisdom is born when we learn not only to think, but to feel, reflect, and become.